And I wanted to now turn it over to Marshall to give an introduction of Dr. Busch, please. Marshall?
So it's quite an extraordinary honor to have Dr. Roland Busch with us. So many of you may know him even from the bio online or basically just from the fame of Siemens more generally. But to give you a little bit more background, a few of the things are on here. He's currently the CTO and deputy CEO of Siemens Corporation, $86 billion firm, 385,000 employees, and they're in the midst of several platform transformations. I'm hoping we'll hear more of that in a bit. Dr. Busch has been there since '94, where he started as project manager for global R&D. He also lived in Shanghai for a while, where he was head of the automotive Asia Pacific region, and from which he was eventually promoted to COO. He's also, at the same time, helping to oversee Next 47, which is Siemens' venture arm. We're doing a number of very interesting things in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, carbon neutrality, and other elements as well. He's a big believer in using tech for social good. I'm hoping we'll hear more about that. Two in particular are things like improving health and reducing carbon footprint, hopefully in ways other than COVID-19 has been doing it. He also, one of my personal favorites, he studied physics. That's what I studied in college initially as well. He got his PhD at Friedrich Alexander University and also studied at University of Grenoble in France, so he's quite cosmopolitan. What you might not know is that he also played guitar in college and does karaoke. If we live, we can do that. And his wife gave him a set of golf clubs with a slogan that we should all use. It is Yoda's line, much to learn you still have. And so with that, I'm hoping we'll have much to learn from Dr. Busch. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Marshall, for the kind introduction. I think I'm supposed to share my screen now with you. Give me a second.
It should automatically give control.
I'm sharing, and I now have a full screen, and I hope that you
So if you go in the top left, now check display settings, and one over. Yeah, check that, and yep, swap presenter, and then it should give you.
Here we go. Are we fine?
Perfect.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation, and I will talk about how we combine the physical and the digital world and how platform strategies are playing into that game. And I'm coming more from the industrial space. You know, Siemens is working on industry, infrastructure, and mobility. We are about to spin our energy business, so I'm covering that a little bit less. But when I'm starting in now, I would like to give you an idea on what happens on the industrial space. You all know this Industry 4.0. Obviously, there has to be a 1, 2, and 3 before. And if you think that this is a continuum of just developing any further, this is, I think, a little bit of misunderstanding. And I give you an idea, first, for example, from 1.0 to 2.0, from the steam engine to electricity, there was a substantial change because before that, we had a steam machine with one axis controlling in one line all the mechanics. Electricity was bringing the opportunity to decouple lines because you can put a motor everywhere, and this is a substantial more freedom. It changed the productivity substantially, as did Industry 3.0, when you have the first industrial computers entering the shop floor as a combination of hardware and software and doing all the things which you see currently. And here comes maybe an even more disruptive change we talk about Industry 4.0. Why I'm saying that? It's not only that hardware and software is going to be decoupled, which gives more freedom. It is about changing from a linear to a networked value chain. I will come to that. But it also transforms the business models themselves. So bringing ecosystems and platforms in the game. So therefore, I do believe that this is maybe an even more disruptive way compared to already tremendous changes which have happened in the past. So watch out, you're living in a very, very exciting time. The basic idea behind it is, we call it the industrial Internet of Things, which is unleashing a new growth area by combining the digital and the physical world in order to drive value. It brings a lot of complexity, as you can imagine, but it also increases tremendously the value proposition and the impact which we see in our markets but we can go beyond whatever we have seen so far. I'll give you a couple of examples a little bit later. Before coming to that, we can now quote any kind of study you want. I'm quoting now McKinsey. They say the potential impact of this Internet of Things is 11 trillion per year in 2025. And here comes an interesting point. B2B would apply for 70%. So if we believe that the B2C business, the platform business is already a big thing, the potential of B2B is even bigger. And maybe that's also a reason why also the big IT companies, the hyperscalers, are looking for and going into the industrial space and look how they can provide value there. Talking about providing value and talking about the triggering this extra area of growth, give you 3 points. For example, in industry, we believe that 60% of, and this is a study which was from McKinsey, we can subscribe to that, 60% of the manufacturing tasks could be automated, improving productivity, quality, and safety, reducing the development time, because we are talking about creating a digital twin of your product, a digital twin of the manufacturing line. And then once you build it and bring it to the real world, because you optimized it in the digital world, then you can have a performance twin where you continuously look how the real world looks like, and all the information you can get, you can bring back into your loop, into the digital twin of your product, optimize it, and you do it all over again. On infrastructure, for example, we can see that we know that 80% of the life cycle costs of a building, for example, are in the operational phase. So the possibility to influence these costs are highest in the planning phase, of course. But then you can, again, building a digital twin and optimizing your system in the operating world, you can reduce these costs substantially. And the last point comes from a favorite of mine, the mobility space. We believe that we can increase the capacity of public transport by 20% without building a new line. This is just making a better train control system. We are recently won an order in Norway where we are bringing the complete interlocking system, 300 interlocking systems of Norway into one in the cloud. And this is like switching from the dial phone to the voice over IP in one step. And that's how powerful the digital world can influence the real world. At Siemens, we started off 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, coming from being a very strong player in automation, and we increased this our automation revenue and portfolio continuously. But we started off in acquiring software companies. The first one was UTS, and then many of them followed. The recently, maybe one of those which are more in your eyes is Mentor Graphics or Mendix, a local platform. And meanwhile, so we invested $10 billion or euros in this software suite, providing us with a 5 billion software revenue, which brings us in the top 10 league of the largest software companies in the world. And with this portfolio, we have now automation software portfolio, and this enables us now to bridge that and to bring this into the new world of the Internet of Things. And again, I will come with examples later. However, if you look at the competitive space where we're working in, there's also a tremendous change, which is unmatched. And let me start with the traditional players. The traditional players, you know them, the ABBs, General Electric, Schlumberger, Schneider, PTC. They are basically doing similar things. Either they come from the software like Dassault and they're partnering with ABB or others, or they come from the software side like PTC and they're partnering with Rockwell, for example, an automation company. So therefore, we see this is not only Siemens who is doing that. It's a lot of combinations which we see in our traditional game. Then you have the tech companies. Of course, there's a lot of data which has to be processed, and the cloud is the perfect place to get all these data, collect them, store them, create value out of them, having a lot of processing power which you need. And this is what we see where the AWS or Microsoft with Azure, they're coming into the game. and they are also providing tremendous good platform technologies, which will definitively play a role in that game. And last but not least, of course, also the consulting firms are in the game now. IoT, connecting the real and the digital world, means integrating these worlds, integrating the IT in the OT world, tremendous potential. And you see that also the consulting firms, not only Accenture's, but also the strategic consulting firms like BCG, like McKinsey, they are entering in that space. And they do it in acquiring domain know-how, which is one of the elements you need if you want to play in that area. Our strategy is, it looks simple, but it's to bring it to life is a complex thing. First and foremost, we are addressing all markets with our strategy. And the technology stack is built basically with a couple of layers. We have the hardware layer, the devices, the things which have to be connected. We have the automation layer, which is also changing. We are talking now about edge devices. So we are bringing much more processing power to the edge. We talk about the edge in the cloud too. Then we have the software layer, which is allowing you, including a connectivity layer, which is allowing you to bring the data into the cloud. You have to take all the data which are currently produced. They are basically sitting there. You waste them. You don't even use them. You have to bring them to the cloud. We have to develop applications. We call it vertical software or vertical applications. And then you have the highest layer of solution and services, which is about, of course, consulting, implementing, prototyping, integrating. We need digital enabled solutions. All of them are vertical specific. This is hard to scale but at that point in time of this higher layer, it's really vertical specific. And last but not least, you want to have marketplaces which customers can really easily choose their applications, easily buy them, implement them, deploy them out of the cloud, and serve them and make them serving their purposes. On the right side, you see an element which is equally important than the technology stack in the middle. It's all about our ecosystem or the business ecosystem, the industrial one, the cloud partners and alliances. The whole deployment of software and digitalization in the IoT space is so broad that there's no one company who can lift this one alone. And we need a lot of technology elements in the technology stack, but also domain know-how in order to really make the things happen. Before I come to examples, I would like to share one more with you. This is, again, the same picture. Real world and digital world, they are connected. All our verticals, and I was justly talking about manufacturing or industry, mobility or infrastructure. Here I give you a glimpse of what's behind it. It runs from automotive, machine building to logistics, cranes, additive manufacturing, energy distribution, rail, airports, so critical infrastructure, oil and gas, campuses, buildings. And here's one element which is of essence. If you look at the line 8 in the middle, this infinity sign, it means that you are starting, as I said before, with a digital twin of your product. Then you go to the digital twin of your manufacturing side and a performance twin. And you run that and do it all over again. You get all the feedback and the input from you would learn. You bring it back to your digital twins, optimize it, build it, and do it again and again. You can enter into this line 8 at each point. You can start with a performance twin and then build up your digital twin of your product, or you start reverse. Regardless where you start, you will get each time you're running through this cycle, you get an improvement, and the faster you do it, the more impactful it will be. So we were thinking about how can we scale B2B platforms and how can we learn from B2C platforms. And there's one particular element is that, as I said before, it doesn't scale that high compared to B2C. And Marshall said it before, this is more on this high value, comparable low volume side, low volume compared to something which scales for whatever, millions and millions of users. But it has a high impact and high value. It requires domain know-how, a technology stack, which really works. And this is something where the standards are still not out there. It's still something a lot of customized, and again, and you need an ecosystem to deploy it and to bring that to life. And this is something what we believe is very new. So far, we are firing only on 2 cylinders in our traditional world. One is, of course, the supply chain, the business partners, the linear supply chain we talked about before in the automotive industry, OEM, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and you line them up. Of course, we are working in knowledge networks, universities and the like. And then the missing part, which is new, it's new to our world, and we have to train our people on platform ecosystems too. It is non-linear anymore, it's networked. And also in platform systems is where you say you're contributing something and you're getting out of it. And the highest value lies basically outside. This is the inverted company. We have to learn that it's not in the DNA of our managers. I'm saying that, I'm raising my hand here because this is something where we have to be really aware of. If you really want to play that game, you have to play it right, and you have to understand the mechanisms behind it. There's a reason why we are working very, very close with Marshall. Give you an idea about our markets and the growth rates, and now you will see why we are so excited. Our core markets are growing with a little bit below 3%. This is where we have a very, very strong foothold. We are number 1 in automation. We are automating everything, manufacturing, buildings, trains, 45 million installed automation systems. But the market is huge, but it grows with 3%. The software market itself grows with 6%. It's still big, 40 billion. We have our PLM software, more than 9 million license seats for our PLM software worldwide. We have a TIA portal. This is a platform in its own. To give you an idea, we are selling Simatic industry controllers. And along with that, we have a TIA portal, which is our engineering platform, our engineering tool, helping customers to program with a local kind of language. And then while they do that, they create automatically the software code for the Simatic, so they can download it and it works. It's a platform on its own. But then on the right side, you see a market which is still on a 30 billion size, but it grows by 15%. And there are a lot of interesting applications which we are following. I'll give you selected examples. I will not go into the bottom right, the industrial edge example. This is where we are really helping machine tool builders, for example, also with new business models that they don't sell machine tools, but they're going to sell machine tool hours, which is a completely new model off balance sheet of their customers. And it resonates obviously very well. Now, the examples. One example is over in the building space. We recently acquired 2 companies, small companies, startups. One is Enlighted. They are providing sensors, plug-and-play sensors for your lighting. They are measuring different things like the movement in buildings, humidity, temperature, and the like. And Comfy is a platform which is it's a user interface which is helping you to think about what's the seating situation in your building. You can control your lights, you can put information on it. And guess when we bought it, this was obviously meant to increase the space productivity of buildings. So packing as many people in a building as you can. Now, in Corona times, we are just converting that and run it reverse. We do that together with a partner where we found out that Salesforce is an ideal partner with their work.com platform, where we are now doing exactly the reverse. So we are not using Comfy to pack the building as much as possible. We are trying to have this social distancing in a building, providing information, transparency, heat maps. Work.com brings in training, boarding passes, dashboards, shift scheduling, for example. So it's an ideal combination. Again, a platform which we built based on an ecosystem, ecosystem on ours and of Salesforce, where we believe we can bring a lot of value to a lot of companies in number 1, bringing the people back to work, back to the office, but eventually also having a kind of a more balanced home office and office working space where people can enjoy both elements to its best. One of my favorites, Religent. Religent is our open platform ecosystem for rail applications. What we are doing is we are constantly monitoring and connecting all the sensors and actuators of trains in order to really measure their current situation, their health situation. And we can predict now with a lead time of 7 to 10 days, which door in a train is going to fail and why. This gives us the opportunity to really run our assets with, I think in some cases, even 100% availability. And this train is one of our high-speed trains. It runs also between Moscow and St. Petersburg. We have now more than 30 million kilometers without technical loss of any minute because, and we had failures, but we could detect them before they appeared. And we were pulling these trains apart, repaired it. So this is the power of it. And now comes platform economy. We have a lot of players in that space, from the rolling stock, from signaling, from infrastructure. And then now we are opening our platform, which is we are using as business models, as a managed service, software as a service, insights, outcome service. And now we are bringing our sometimes also competitors, with First Alpine Signaling, for example, competitor of our suppliers like Knorr-Bremse. And we are bringing them on the platform because they have exactly the same problems in the same environment, public transport environment, and they're using our applications. And the more they use it, the more we're getting out of this platform. And this is exactly the platform economy we want to see. And they are happy in using that, but they also can bring their value into our platform and leverage it for the respective businesses. So my last example is Mendix, a low-code platform which can build applications 10 times faster with 70% less resources, and I have to say also less skilled resources. It is a platform which combines a lot of existing systems. So the data ingestion comes from whatever kind of system like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, and the like, also our systems, existing systems. And they're providing a bunch of applications. Again, it's a low-code platform with workflows, engineering applications, dashboards, and reporting. And it brings a tremendous productivity to everybody who wants to run an application based on an IoT platform where you get an access to data, operational data, and you can program it and drive productivity there. You see, we have more than 750 customers across 25 industries, universities, developers, and the like. They are using that platform. And this is the way how Siemens is finally starting to make and shape our economies to make them more sustainable and more resilient too. With that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I think we have maybe some time, a little bit time for some questions.
Actually, Roland, I want to thank you for that. It's a really interesting set of issues. I'm impressed that you're bringing the competitors into your ecosystem and that you've got quite a roadmap going forward. We have a slew of questions. So let me just give you 4 and then have to repeat any of them. If we happen to have more time, which I doubt, I can actually go deeper. We've got several more after that. So let me give you 4 quick ones, okay? The first one is the digital twins is a really interesting idea. Who gets access and who gets access to the intellectual property rights? Is it just Siemens or do you let ecosystem partners in as well?
Very good question.
Second, so let me give you all 4.
Okay.
Choose the ones that you want. The second is, what are the success criteria in a B2B context? How are you designing for networks and what are your network effects roadmap? The third question is, how are you monetizing in the B2B context? Because you don't have the ad model. So it's not Google or Facebook. So what's the monetization strategy? And this one's kind of fun. So what's your timeline? I think this one's coming from investors. So I think they want to know when that one is. So the fourth one is what's your timeline for achieving all of these things? I have a couple more if you happen to be able to.
I try to be fast so that there was a little time. So the access rights for the digital twin. This is a very touchy topic because take a machine tool company, for example, the data which we are generating and creating the digital twin. Of course, they are owned by the machine tool builder, and they are very keen about it because you can learn a lot about their machine tools themselves if you have access to the data. So it's very, very careful. So the point is that we are a model where we say we are using our applications, running them on their data without looking into this data. On the other side, many customers are sharing data with us because they have, and this is exactly what I talked about it, they get more out of it if they share. And a very good example where it's less critical is in mobility space again. Singapore customer, Singaporean operator of the Singapore Metro said, if I would share my data with you, my service data, can I leverage then all your knowledge which you get from Munich, from New York, from London, and they're not competitors at all. So I mean, Singapore Metro and London Metro, they don't compete. So they are very easy in sharing because they get the benefit out of it. So you really have to distinguish. Success in a B2B is basically measured in the value which we're creating at our customers. One example, for example, if you go to a customer who does testing, is still consuming 20 to 30% of the time, of the flow time, space and money even. If you can suppress testing by telling that according to the data which we are having from the welding machine, we know that these parts are faulty, so take them out, it's anyhow not worth. You can reduce your testing time. This is a tremendous value. You can increase your output of our stamping machines, you optimize them, a huge asset sitting there, you can optimize it. And the value which is basically created with that is the measure of success at the end of the day. And here come to monetizing. We monetize in different ways. In some cases, we are running apps as a software as a service, so the customers are using it. In some cases, we are monetizing via the data, the amount of data customers are using and running through the system and analyzing. Or we are coming in models where we are taking some value off balance sheet. For example, we are providing technical availability of our trains rather than selling trains, including all the long-term service agreements, which is a very nice business. It's more resilient. And since we know what we are doing, because we know our technology, we can optimize it. By the way, we would optimize not only our fleet, but also the fleet of others. We have enough knowledge. The timeline, this is the point where we have to take about the take-on rate for customers. It's lagging because of, in most cases, customers are hesitating. There's no real standard yet. So they're looking for standard solutions, plug and play. And very, very, very important, the capabilities of customers to really buy these kind of solutions and run them on their own operations is not there yet. So this is the reason why we are providing integration resources and training resources too. Timeline would be, I think it takes a couple of years until you receive the first really scaling up applications. In some cases, we are close to do that. But have in mind that also Amazon or Google was not built in a year. They also took some time before they took off and they took this economy of scale. I remember, or I just want to put highlight your curve, Marshall. N squared is the name of the game. It starts slow and then it increases quickly.
Well, I'm genuinely impressed. In a marvel of German efficiency, you actually answered the question and did it with a little time left over. So we have time for one more question. How do you manage competition among your competitors, right? Each of them in some way, so do you have to play favorites? How would you balance the neutrality of that playing field? So how do you manage a competition among the competition?
I think it's a new way of looking at it. In some cases, if you manage competition in a way that you take competitors into your ecosystem, it helps. As I said before, customers would not take on solutions not before there's a standard. Assume now that the three automation players, big automation players, would come to a kind of a certain standard for a technology stack. The take-on rate of customers would be much, much faster. So, and again, if you share some, you get some out. So it's a touchy topic. You have to be very careful how much you want to share. But the tendency, I would say, is going more into a co-opetition kind of way, where you're really building a platform, a strong platform where people are benefiting from, creating a much, much more value than you can do in trying to defend your turf on your own and be, let's say, have a closed system. So we are working on open system. We are going to open APIs too, also to our competitors. With that, we hope that we can move the needle very, very fast and scale up.
Fantastic. Dr. Busch, this has been an honor. Really a treat to hear about what you're doing. It's amazing to see what Siemens is actually moving forward and how they're progressing. So with that, we are exactly on time. So I want to turn it over to the next several speakers. Of course, you're welcome to join us for the rest of the day.
Thanks.
I look forward to the next set of topics. Thank you.
Thanks, Marshall.